welcome.
Hi, I'm Katie Morrell. I'm a creative and writer based in Bend, Oregon.
And I'm Karen Hawkins. I am the founder of Rebellious Magazine for Women and co-publisher and co-editor-in-chief of the Chicago Reader.
You are listening to Of Course I'm Not Okay, the podcast. Join us as we talk about mental health, coping with quarantine, and creativity.
For some of our episodes, we'll talk with writers, creatives, and activists to get their take. Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Hello, Karen, and happy Monday. I'm so happy to see your face.
Katie, it's so good to see you. Happy belated Valentine's Day.
Oh yes, happy belated Valentine's Day. And you're wearing red. No one can see your beautiful shirt right now. And so, yes, I actually don't own very many things that are red. I should kind of get on that. But yes, Valentine's Day was yesterday. I hope everyone had a wonderful, love-filled day. And if they didn't, that's cool too. Whatever works. It's fine.
Exactly. I was going to say, I am only wearing red today. I mean, I own a lot of red. I own a magazine and our logo is red. So I can ship you as many red things as you'd like, Katie.
Nice.
But I have an event tonight on Zoom, of course, called Evil Valentine's Day.
Ooh.
So I feel a certain kind of way about Valentine's Day. The Feminist Erotica podcast girls and I are going to talk about queer movies that we love, queer romantic movies that we love. So,
Great. That sounds like so much fun.
yeah, I hate Valentine's Day.
Do you? Have you always hated Valentine's Day, or is it just because it's like a Hallmark holiday?
Yeah, I've always hated it.
Yeah.
/ had years where I really enjoyed it. So I have a love-hate relationship with it, I think.
Totally. I think a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with Valentine's Day. I have one friend who is absolutely obsessed with it, and like I always think of her because she just like eats all of the chocolate and like makes Valentine's for all of her friends, and she's 40 and she sends me Valentine's, and I'm like, oh, that's great. That's 1 in a million. Like but I mean, I'm not trying to be a curmudgeon, but yeah, I think it's sometimes pretty hard when like people have had maybe not so great Valentine's days. And I think the thing for me was when Sweetest Day became a thing. Do you remember that? I don't even know when that is.
Is it in October? It's some bullshit. Whatever it is. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think you're right. I think it's in the fall sometime. And I always was like, what is this? And in high school, they would have, for $1, you could send a carnation and a little like note on a sticky note to someone. And that person would get for Sweetest Day, because it would like the beginning of school or whatever. It was like a couple months in. And like you would get a carnation. And like that meant that someone at school really liked you. And it was just like, oh man, there's a lot around that. I mean, that's great if you got a carnation. I'm not saying I ever got a carnation. I think I might have gotten one in 4 years.
I mean, I feel like it's, say again, sorry.
From a girlfriend, probably, yes. But it's what?
No, I was going to say, I feel like carnations are of a certain era. I'm not calling us old. I'm just saying, I feel like carnations had their day as a flower of choice. And yeah.
Carnations, the flower of choice, I think it ended in 1991. Like, I don't know. No offense out there. If you're a carnation diehard, you do you.
Yep. And if you love Valentine's Day, again, I feel like I brought it up and then I immediately started talking about how much I hate it. But I feel like if you love it, I'm happy for you.
Totally. I'm with you. And if you're alone and don't have a Valentine, there's nothing wrong with you. Oh, deep breaths. Yeah, there's a lot of emotion behind Valentine's Day. Didn't really know that was going to come, but yes. Okay, so very hard turn in combo, Karen. I have to share something with you. So this week, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine who is a listener on the pod. Susan, I love you, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I was having a conversation about this concept around when someone in your life is struggling and maybe they're just having a bad day, like not like something enormous, but just like having a bad day and they are wanting to tell you about it. I have experienced moments where I am like really in a great place and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like I can totally, listen and it won't bother me. And then I have other times where I'm not in such a great place and it kind of sinks me. So I was explaining this to her and she's like, oh, this is I have a perfect metaphor for this. She's like, I was a lifeguard in college. And she said, you know, I remember hearing someone, like one of our trainers in college, explain how when you're a lifeguard and someone is literally drowning out there, like flailing, you have to throw them a life raft or like a little, like one of those ring things. And when you throw it to them and you stay on solid ground, they have a better chance of then grabbing it and coming to you. Versus if you swim out there with them, they might take their hand and stick it on top of your head and sink you with them, and you could drown. And so she was telling me this while I was kind of going through a moment where I was in a place where I was, there was just a personal experience where I was trying to not go out there and drown. And it was so fucking profound, Karen. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, stay on dry land, throw them the ring. She's like, that's all you have to do. She's like, sometimes my husband and I one of us will be in a bad place. And she's like, we'll just text each other one of those like emojis that like is like a lifesaver ring. I didn't know that was even an emoji. And she's like, that's all it is. And we feel better. We know that that person is there for us. And I was like, my brain has exploded.
I'm almost speechless. Like, that is a beautiful analogy.
Right?
Especially for those of us who are the lifeguard for people in our lives, for a lot of people in our lives. And we have our own lifeguards, but I feel like you and I both have a lot of swimmers out there with little floaties on who are struggling.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And we love them, all of them. And sometimes it's great to go out and swim because we know we're not going to get dunked or, you know, like swallowed by a great white shark. But other times, not so great. And so, yeah. Thank you, Susan. Honestly, like that was like so profound. I was talking with her and one other friend, and both me and the other friend were just like, honestly, we were speechless. We were like, that, okay. Like that's a mic drop. We're done for the conversation today because it was so good. And I was like, okay, I have to keep remembering this because like, you know, the feeling of when you do swim out and you do get dunked. I mean, at least for me, it sometimes takes a long time to kind of come up for air and feel okay.
Absolutely. And it's not even your stuff. Like you have taken on someone else's stuff. You weren't drowning. You were chilling. Right? I mean, we all have our own stuff. Yeah, it's a lot. It reminds me of like why it's so important for therapists to have therapists, like people whose job it is to take all of this stuff in all day.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You're not out there. It's not your shit. You're just sun tanning and reading Rolling Stone, you know, like you're just
the floppy hat on.
Oh, sunshine and warm weather. Wow. Yeah, both of us are kind of in that right now. Yeah. Wishing at least we could be in that. But yes, I did want to impart that and share impart what she said to me because it was so profound and I'm just like so excited about it. And I just feel like I'm really going to think about that a lot.
Well, and I love the potential mutuality of it, like that she and her husband do it and that it's shorthand for them, that like you can share it with your circle and that people will understand what that means. Like,
exactly. You can just, and now emojis are a thing. And so you can just like send a little emoji and that's that. But anyhow, that's just something that happened this week and I was so excited about it. But yeah, how was your week? I heard you were telling me that it's like -75 in Chicago. Like what is happening there?
I know this is a very embarrassing story. I'm just going to tell on myself. So you and I are talking in a different room than I'm usually in. And you were like, oh, look at that pretty blue blanket. And I was like, yeah, no, that's my sleeping bag. Like I'm sitting on my bed right now. And
indoors,
exactly right. I'm not in an igloo. This is not a yurt dwelling. Full on in the apartment I pay rent to live in with heating. And I have been so freaked out about getting cold that I have my sleeping bag at the foot of my bed just in case things go south.
I think that is such a genius idea. I really don't think I would ever think of that. But yeah, sleeping bags can actually create a tremendous amount of warmth depending on how plush your sleeping bag is.
Exactly. And I bought this in Wisconsin, so it's like warm down to minus 65 degrees.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're good. Yeah.
I feel really good about it. I mean, about the sleeping bag, not about the fact that I have my sleeping bag on my indoor bed, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I just picked up my phone because I want to tell you what the temperature is right now. Right now in Chicago, it is 18 degrees and feels like 9.
Oh man.
That's great.
I remember so vividly living in Chicago and just feeling like I remember so vividly moments where the weather advisory, like the people on the news or on the radio were saying like, please do not go outside, like literally do not go outside, like it's unsafe to breathe this air. I always thought about like dogs and like, I mean, I remember my dog Lucy, when we got her about a year before we left Chicago for San Francisco. And so we got her in the middle of the winter, and it would take her conservatively 45 minutes to pee because she hated the snow so much. She's such a princess. And Tyler and I would just be like, we're going to die. Like we're not allowed to be outside. This is, yeah, it's rough. Not just for people with dogs, but everybody in Chicago.
It's real rough. And it's February in Chicago. I get it. Like this is what we all signed up for, but I feel like this was initially sold to me the same way that the pandemic was sold to me, which was this is gonna be a couple days. It's gonna be cold, you guys. We're gonna have a polar vortex, then you're gonna be fine. And it keeps getting pushed out. I don't even know what day we're on of like, oh, by the way, it's dangerous to be outside.
Oh man, really?
Yeah.
So this has been like more than a week then.
Oh yeah. And there's like a foot of snow on the ground.
Wow.
If you were listening in a warm weather clime, we'd love for you to tweet or Instagram us a photo of where you are. That would be lovely.
That would be so nice. Please do. And we will retweet or share it on Instagram because that would just warm our hearts. Bend is probably, I would say, maybe in the mid 20s. It is supposed to get down to 15 tomorrow, which is like a weather advisory for our area. But yeah, I love what you texted me earlier this week in terms of a topic for today's pod. Listeners, if you love all of our topics, 97% of them come from Karen's genius mind. So thank you very much for coming up with that yet again.
I know we'd have to, it's not 97%. You're very kind to say that. So what occurred to me, and I mean, they come out of my mind, but they're things like, I mean, if you look at our topic list, and a lot of them we both came up with, but they're rage. Like, you know what I mean? Like some of them are, I feel like the uplifting ones with like these amazing guests are yours. And the ones where you're just like, oh shit, that's real. That was probably me. That's probably me.
Oh, rage. I feel like we could bring that one back.
That.
Let's talk about it again. That isn't today's topic, but still, I'm open for that any day.
It's so funny that like that's the first one that popped into my head, and that I'm like, we could talk about that literally anytime. So the actual topic for today. Okay, wait. I'm going to read this quote that I texted you. Oh, attributed to Teddy Roosevelt, and it is that comparison is the thief of joy. Ooh, yeah, I'm feeling that a lot right now.
Are you?
Yeah, I think because I diagnosed it that it's a combination of things. And one of them is that I am spending time on social media now, not looking at the news because the news is not apocalyptic right now.
Right.
So it's more personal news. My book deal went through. Personal news. I got a new job, and it's just like, ugh. I don't need this shit right now. Yeah.
Oh, that is so real. I feel like social media has heightened the amount of comparison that we're doing, even like not even consciously. I mean, it's at least for me, it's so subconscious. And it also very much depends on if I'm in a good place that day or not. If I'm not, probably shouldn't go on social media. Probably just skip it because I'm not sure if it's going to make me feel better. I mean, every once in a while I'll read like a nice poem from a poet that I love, or like some sort of art, and I'm like, that's really inspiring, great. But that's like 1%, and the other 99 is people's posts about things that, and I'm guilty of this too, I think, of just like the top 1% of our lives. And when you're sitting in your bed with like 4 Cheetos onto your left and like, you know, like a half-eaten burrito on your right, not speaking for anyone but myself, then like you might feel like that top 1% of someone's life doesn't really reflect my bottom 1% of my life.
That is such a good way to put it. And it makes me want Cheetos, but I love that. It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, it is this very carefully curated view of someone's life. And particularly when you're struggling, and if you don't have an outlet to talk about how you're struggling, you feel like everyone else is fine.
Yes.
Like everybody else seems to be out there living their lives, getting book deals, doing whatever, doing headstands and yoga class and all this shit. And I'm just like rolling around in my burrito.
Yes. 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 I just think that that quote by Teddy Roosevelt, "Comparison is a thief of joy," is just so viscerally real for me, because like it's joy that it takes away from you. Like it's, yes, it's self-worth also, and it like, you know, mental health and all of that, but it's joyless, at least in my experience, to compare myself to other people. It's a tough one actually, because it just feels so hard. And especially now when we're not all out and about and we're not experiencing our lives as we used to, we're just stuck inside, and like our minds can kind of go to those dark places much, much easier in my experience.
Oh my God, exactly. Well, and it also, what it also brings up for me is like, it also makes it difficult to celebrate joyful things. Like immediately after having that moment, especially if you were raised in a particular way to not celebrate things, or if you were not someone who got praised a lot for things, or if your parents didn't tell you they were proud of you, like all of that wonderful
Yes.
70s parenting a lot of us experienced. Like, no offense, mom, I'm just okay. But you know, if you weren't raised, if you don't have that in your DNA to celebrate things, if it's not intuitive to you to celebrate, if you do have something good happen, the way that your brain shuts you off from being happy is it's just like, oh, well, you did that, but you haven't done this.
Mm.
Or you've done that, but so and so did this thing. Like it really so bad. It's really
That's so real. That's so, so real, because it's like it's it's like kind of, you're looking at social media, seeing these people celebrating whatever their, you know, self-proclaimed thing that they think is deserving of celebrating, and then at the same time not able to celebrate the thing that you're like, that's really ironic. Because you're like, I think that's it. I'm not saying you, I'm saying like in general, I have the same experience where I'm like, okay, well, at least for me, celebrating, and I feel like celebrating could be a whole podcast episode, because I think that at least as women, it's so not acceptable to just be like, I'm awesome, fuck yeah, I'm amazing, like this is the
right.
coolest, we're fantastic. Like, I mean, I think that we're fantastic, but I also think like, me personally, me being like, oh, that was just amazing, I'm such a badass, no, that doesn't really, yeah.
Ooh, that is a whole other season about how hard that is, and that people who are good at self-promotion but not necessarily good at the thing they're promoting get all of the attention and all of the stuff. And it reminds me of like why it's so important to have allies and to have like wing people and to have like your hype man. Like you have to have people, other people around you who are like, oh my God, have you heard about Kitty? She's so amazing. Like it's
Karen
right.
is a goddess and she is so incredible. And have you seen all the things she's been doing? Yes, I completely agree with you. Having a community, or even just one person, or just writing in your journal about how great you are, if you don't have that one person, whatever it is, like just get it out of yourself, because like celebration is so important, and that can help at least in my opinion, like compete with the competition feeling, because it's like you're actually keeping the energy on what you're doing. Like that's what's important. It's like, who cares? Like if you shine, I shine. Like if you're shining so brightly and that's incredible and I'm feeling good about what I'm doing, I'm less likely to compare myself.
Exactly. Well, and I know I sent you a Psychology Today article about this idea of comparison being the thief of joy. And I can't remember, what is it? People on the Appalachian Trail say their hike is their hike or something like that. And it reminded me that many, many, many years and many pounds ago, I used to do the AIDS ride, which was the series of fundraising rides all over the country.
Oh yeah.
They don't do them anymore. But I did the Minneapolis to Chicago ride twice.
Really? That's amazing.
500 miles over 6 days. It was so much fun, sleeping in
Wow.
tents with this very sleeping bag, in fact. And just how I know it's very useful. And I mean, there were like thousands of us on this ride, including people who were like professional bike messengers and these guys who like loved to show off. And as I was getting passed by like 85-year-old women and all of these dudes, I just would think like, that's their AIDS ride and this is my AIDS ride.
Yes.
Like I have to just have, exactly like you're saying, like I have to just have my own experience and have my own experience be okay.
Yes. Yes. That's so beautiful. Was it helpful in those moments, kind of tying in what you were saying about having wing people, to have that community that every night you'd be in those tents, and would you be kind of celebrating whatever your experience was? So that, did you feel like there wasn't as much competition? But that's still such an incredible example, because you saw these people passing you and you're just, yeah.
Oh my God. My least favorite, like I still flinch. My least favorite phrase in the world at the time was "on your left." Fucking as people are fucking passing you. To be polite, on your left. Yeah, I know. I got you, man. We're the only people on this road in rural Wisconsin. You just go ahead, go by me. You don't have to say anything.
You don't have to just acknowledge the fact that you're faster than me.
I mean, especially if you hear "on your left" 100 times in a row.
Yeah.
It's just, whew, yeah.
Yeah.
It did help me at the time. And I feel like one of the things I really enjoyed about that experience was the community, because we'd all get to the camp at night and they always had like these cheesy activities for us. Like we had a talent show or they'd have musicians come in, and it was the camaraderie of that experience and the community of that was really the funnest part of it.
Oh, that's so fun. It did that like lessen the sting of getting passed by an 85-year-old, or was that?
Ooh, yeah, no, that still sucked.
Oh my gosh, I have to share a story. So I did a mini triathlon, like a short triathlon with my mom a couple years ago, and I had never done a triathlon before, and I have no idea why they did this, but they, as part of it, so you're wearing shorts, it was in San Diego, so it was very warm, and so it's swimming, biking, and then running. And the way that when you go to an expo thing like the day before to like, get your shirt or your number or whatever. Anyway, they have a Sharpie and you have to pull up your pant leg, or if you're wearing shorts, it's fine. And on your calf of your right leg, they write your age on it. Like they write your age on your body with a Sharpie marker.
What?
And oh yeah, apparently this is a thing in all triathlons. I don't know. Anyway, so, or at least a few that I've done. But anyway, so I don't remember. I think it doesn't matter. I was like in my early 30s at this point. But anyway, it was really humbling, because when you're on, I was feeling awesome. I was like, this is great. I'm like, I'm having so much fun. It's so sunny and warm and I love San Diego. And I'm running and I'm almost done with the run part. And like, I don't even know how many people passed me who early 30s, who were like in their 70s. And like, it was just, but you see, it's so interesting because like very rarely in life, or ever really, do you know someone's actual age, and you would never ask. But like, it's just fucking right there in front of you. And you're like, cool comparison. Kind of lessened my joy in the moment.
The thief of my joy is a 77-year-old man in short shorts. Great.
Exactly. Oh gosh. I mean, I still had fun, but it was just like, interesting. But I'm with you. Like, it was like, at the end of it, I was like, okay, well, everyone's having fun and it's this big community and I'm with my mom and my sister and it's really fun. It's great. But like, maybe if I was all by myself, I'd have been like, God damn it. Why did that guy that like was wearing a Speedo? No, he wasn't really wearing a Speedo, but you get it. He passed me.
Yeah. The short running shorts. I also thought Speedo, but yeah, no, we all know those really short.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those. So one thing I loved that you sent me, that Psychology Today article, because one of the things that I really loved in terms of, because they had and we'll link this in the description of the podcast, listeners, if you want to read it yourself. But one of the things that these psychologists said that really helps in terms of increasing your joy and decreasing your propensity to compare is to maybe not, if you are comparing, maybe not look at someone who is like the pinnacle of whatever you're aiming for. So like if you're trying to write a book, or if you're thinking about writing a book, you're not looking at the Glennon Doyles and Elizabeth Gilberts and Brene Browns of the world, and instead look at people who are in writing groups that are small, maybe, in their own communities. But what I took that as, which I loved, was like, don't look at the elite athlete if you're trying to lose weight. Look at someone else who's really mediocre. Like, I really,
Yep.
like, not that I'm mediocre, but it just, yeah, it helped. It's like, let's just get on the same level here.
Yeah. Compare yourself to mediocrity. Those are words to live by.
Exactly. We might have that on some merch in the future.
Stay tuned.
Keep your eyes peeled. Stay tuned. Exactly. Yeah. And if you're, at least this is my thing, is that if a social media account is making me not feel good about myself, unfollow. Like, it's okay. Even if it's a friend, which I know is like taboo. You can also, I think you can mute them or something. So maybe they don't know that you unfollowed them or whatever, and so you don't see their stuff. But if something's not making you feel good about yourself, pitch that.
Well, and I feel like you're also reminding me, like, I feel like I sometimes, especially on social media, it's easy to forget context. Because I have friends who are posting beautiful selfies of themselves as an exercise for their own self-image. As a, like, I want to feel good about myself, I'm going to post a selfie a day to like show myself that like I do look great and I am proud of how I look, or I want to remember this time of my life or whatever. And I feel like the context of that is so important versus the people we all know who are like posting photos of themselves in bikinis to talk about how much weight they lost. Like, bitch, I don't care.
Yes. And that might be true to them, and maybe that's their celebration and good for them. But it's, yes, I totally know what you mean. Yeah, actually, that really hit me a couple years ago. And that's the reason why we started working together was, when I started writing a column for Rebellious about body acceptance. I mean, I watched this documentary, which I will also link in the description of this podcast, called Embrace. It was created a couple years ago by this incredible Australian filmmaker. And it's all about embracing whatever your body is right now. Like right now, not like in 5 months when you have dieted and lifted weights for 5 days in a row. It's like, or 5 days a week. And I think that I actually realized, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was following a lot of Instagram accounts that did like those before and after photos. And truly, I'm not trying to bash the people who do that. Like, if that's your shtick, cool. Like, you do you, like you're on your own sovereign being, and I am too. So I can unfollow you because it makes me feel like shit. And so like I mean, and that's the thing. That's another part of this conversation, which is interesting. It's like, if you do feel the need to celebrate and you do genuinely want to like put something out into the world that you feel good about, I don't think we're trying to shame you to do it. It's more about the opposite, the looking at those like people who do that and try to just like know that like you can be okay with yourself regardless of how other people like to express themselves. But I think the moral of the story, listeners, is if you are finding yourself comparing to others on social media or not. Like, I have a friend who is loves, 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 loves travel. And she is seeing a lot of, I guess I'm putting air quotes here, influencers traveling to places. Um, and she's honestly struggling with it. She's like, oh my gosh, how are all of these people going to these fabulous places? And that's not my comparison brand, or like that's not my brand of comparison, but I get it. Like there's different things that people compare to. Just know you're not alone, and just try to, I think our moral of the story here is celebrate yourself.
Yeah. And it's your AIDS ride, and you get to be excited about your own experience, and that there's a difference between being inspired by somebody's story and somebody's story making you feel like shit. I feel like it's about striking that balance. There are people we follow who are in our fields or who spark something for us, like, oh, I'm inspired by Glennon Doyle, or I'm inspired by Brene Brown. But I feel like, yeah, the flip side of that is like, I'm going to write my memoir and it's going to be a bestseller, like Glennon Doyle, like, or it's not.
Right. And it's okay.
Right.
It's totally okay. Like you don't have to become the next Glennon Doyle. If you do, great, awesome. If that's your path, but you can just be you, and that's perfect and like amazing. And yes, to your point about like trying to decipher whether or not, at least for me, when I am trying to decipher if someone's inspiring me or if I'm comparing myself to them, I try to feel into my body. Like, what am I feeling? Like, am I feeling, and sometimes I don't know right in the moment, but maybe after I got off Instagram or I get off Instagram, I will actually feel kind of down, or I'll feel kind of anxious or something. And I'll be like, why am I feeling this way? And it's probably because of that. So I encourage everyone to pay attention to how their body responds, and their mind, of course. But I find, at least for me, it manifests in the body most of the time.
Yeah. And really, the last thing I'll say about comparison is that there is also some joy to be gained if you can find a way to work with your competitors or to work with the people you're competing against. If you can find some way to build community with them in a way that you're not competing, I feel like it can be really useful, because it's lonely out here. And if you can find people who do what you do, and you can talk about the thing that you do in a way that doesn't feel competitive, I feel like there's something really beautiful in that. And you have to find a way to set aside the stuff that's competitive.
Yes. Yes. That is such a beautiful point, because it's like when you remove the competition and you get into community with people who inspire you, then creativity flows and it becomes even more generative in terms of like your own creativity and your own inspiration, and your own support of other people. And like you might want to reach out to someone that you're like, oh gosh, I'm comparing now, but maybe I can get to an inspiring place with that person, or I can feel that way. Um, that's so profound, and that's really effective, I think, to be in community with people that like do actually inspire you, are doing stuff that you like love.
We'll get there someday. Yes.
We'll get there someday. Yes. We are sending you all love and joyful moments of non-comparison and a tremendous amount of inspiration. We will see you next week.